Hello guys. So in this session we are going to learn how to deploy NodeApp Helm Chart on AWS EKS using Jenkins Pipeline. So as you can see here, I have already installed Jenkins, right? And in this instance, I have already created my AWS EKS. So as you can see, these two nodes, right? So in this my instance, I have already installed Jenkins as well as I have already created my AWS EKS, right? So let's start. So here we are going to learn how to deploy Helm chart on AWS EKS using Jenkins pipeline, right? So that's why first of all we need to install AWS EKS. That means we need to create AWS EKS. Then next is we need to install Jenkins, right? Okay. So after that here, as you can see, this is my Jenkins dashboard. Now the next step is we need to install some plugins. So which plugins? So go to the manage Jenkins and they can go to the plugins and you go to the available plugins and then here search for Node.js. So as you can see here npm, right? Node.js plugin executes Node.js script as a build step. So I'm going to install it. Okay, so as you can see it's done, right? Okay. Then go to the dashboard. So it's done. So we have successfully installed plugins, right? Now the next step is go to the dashboard, then go to the manage Jenkins, and now go to the system. So here, as you can see, wait for a few seconds. Now go to the system, right? So wait a second. Okay. So in system, as you can see, if I scroll down, okay, sorry. Go to the manage Jenkins and go to the tools. Okay, not system. Go to the tools. And here, if I scroll down, as you can see, Node.js installations, right? We need to add Node.js. So click on add Node.js and I'm going to enter a name Node. Okay. Then you can see checkout install automatically and the version is Node.js 21.0.0 and so on. And click on apply and save. Okay, it's done. Now go to the dashboard. Okay, it's done. So we have successfully installed plugins and we have successfully add our installation Node.js, right? Okay. Now the next step is, so here we are going to deploy Node app Helm chart, right? So that's why we need to install Helm chart, right? On our AWS EKS, right? That means our instance. So here we need to install Helm chart. So first of all, let's clear the screen first and here let's install Helm chart. So here you can see the commands to install Helm chart. So first of all, download the Helm chart, Helm installation script using below commands. So first of all, let's download the Helm installations. Okay. Now the next step is here, add execute permission to the downloaded script, right? So that's why here I'm going to run this command to add some permissions. Then next is execute the installation script using this below command. Okay, it's done. Now the next is validate the Helm installation by executing the Helm command. Okay. Now if you want to check the version of your Helm and the details about your Helm, then you can run the command Helm version. Okay, you can see the details of about your Helm. Right. So here we have successfully installed Helm. Right. Okay. Now after that, here we need to create our Helm chart here, right? If I run the ls command, as you can see, there is no any Helm chart right now, right? So we need to create our Helm chart. So here the command, we will create a Helm chart, right? So the command is like that, right? So I'm going to create my Helm chart. So my chart name is node-app, right? You can see the command is look like this: Helm create and then your chart name. So my chart name will be node app, right? So click and press enter. So as you can see, creating node app. Now if I run the ls command, so as you can see our Helm chart folder. So let's inside our Helm chart folder node app. Now if I run the ls command, right, as you can see the info node app, there is a files chart.yaml, then charts, then templates, and then values.yaml file. So here we need to modify, we need to update some files here. So which files? First of all, let's edit our values.yaml file. So I'm going to edit my file using nano command, nano editor. So the command is sudo nano values.yaml. So here, first of all, repository. So here we need to change our repository. So here we need to enter. So as you can see here in my values.yaml file, we need to change our values.yaml file, right? So in repository here, we need this. Okay, so as you can see, this is my values.yaml file, right? So in my values.yaml file, you can see image repository. So here I mention my repository. So which repository here? I mention my repository GitHub, right? This is my GitHub repository. So here I'm going to enter DevOps hint, my GitHub username, and then my image name is node app hyphen 1.1. So here I'm going to mention this here, right, in repository section. Okay. Then after that, let's scroll down and tag will be latest. Okay. Then next is scroll down and here the type cluster IP I'm going to replace with load balancer. Right. Then after that here I'm going to add target port, right? So you can see here target port, protocol, and then name, right? So here I'm going to add this target port. So my target port will be 3000, right? Then protocol TCP and the name is node app. Okay, so that's it for values.yaml file. So let's save this file using Control X, Y, and enter. Okay, now the next file is, let's insert the templates folder. And if I run the ls command, so you can see in templates folder there is few files, right? So we need to update this file. So first of all, we are going to update our deployment.yaml file. So let's inside our deployment.yaml file using sudo nano deployment.yaml. So as you can see in our deployment.yaml file, there is few changes, right? So let's check few which changes. So here I'm going to open my deployment.yaml file. right? You can see in my deployment.yaml file, there is a change values.service.target port, right? So we need to replace this here. Right. Okay. Then as you can see, HTTP, then TCP, right? Okay. Okay. It's done, right? Now let's save the file and exit. Okay. Now the next file is our service.yaml file. Right. So here in service.yaml file, we need to enter this target port, then protocol, and then right. So here I'm going to open my service.yaml file. And as you can see the changes here, we need to enter this name and service port and target port here. Okay. As you can see, target port values.service.target port, then protocol and name, right? Okay. So it's done. Now let's save the file and exit. Okay. So we have successfully updated our few files. Which files? First of all, values.yaml file, then deployment.yaml file, and then service.yaml file, right? Okay, it's done. So we have successfully updated our files. Okay. Now the next step is here. Let's go to the Jenkins dashboard, and here, so okay, before add some credentials here. Here you can see this is my GitHub repository. As you can see, this is my GitHub repository, right? So I'm going to use this GitHub repository. So in my repository, you can see first of all Docker file, then Jenkins file, then package.json file, and then server.js file. So as you can see here we have successfully updated our node app, right? This node app folder, that means our Helm chart, right? This is our Helm chart folder. So we need to push this folder into our repository. So as you can see, I have already pushed this folder, that means my Helm chart folder in my repository, you can see, right? Then after that you need to create the Docker file, then Jenkins file, then package.json file, and then server.js file, right? So as you can see in my node app folder, there is a few files, values.yaml, deployment, then templates folder, then in template folder deployment.yaml file, then service.yaml file, and so on, right? Then here you can see I have created Docker file. So in Docker file you can see my export port number is 3000, right? Okay, so this is my Docker file. Then after that, as you can see, my package.json file, this is my package.json file, then server.js file. So this is my server.js file, and as you can see here also, my port number is 3000, right? And also in my values.yaml file, there is a port number, target port number is 3000, right? Okay, so here after that, you can see this is my server.js file, right? So you need to create a repository in your GitHub action, and you need to create these few files, and after that you need to push this Helm chart in this repository, right? So you can see my Helm chart folder is node app. So here you can see I have already pushed this code into my repository, right? Okay, so this is my repository. So now after creating your repository and after push your Helm chart folder in your repository, let's go to the Jenkins. Okay. Now here we need to add credentials. Which credentials? Our GitHub action credentials. So go to the manage Jenkins. So here we are going to add this GitHub URL, GitHub repository URL in Jenkins, right? So that's why here we need to add our GitHub action credentials, right? So go to the manage Jenkins and then go to the credentials. Go to the global, add credentials. And here username and password, then username. So my GitHub username is DevOpsInt, and after that password. So I'm going to enter my password. Okay, and then ID. So here I'm going to enter ID. GitHub credentials, right? And click on create. So as you can see, our credential is created, right? With the name GitHub credentials. Okay. Now it's done. Now go to the dashboard. And now let's create our job, right? Sorry, let's create our pipeline. So click on new item and enter your name. So my name will be Helm Chart, right? Then select pipeline, click on OK. After that, check out GitHub project and enter a project URL. Okay. So here we need to enter our GitHub project URL. So our URL is here, right? So I'm going to use it and let's click on. Let's paste here, right? After that here, let's click on pipeline syntax. So let's create our syntax, right? So here select with credentials, right? So after that with credentials here we need to click on add and then click on secret text, right? And here click on add Jenkins. So I'm going to create secret text here. Select secret text and then secret will be my dockerhub password, right? And ID is DevOps hint. Okay. Okay, click on add and now click on generate pipeline syntax. So this is our pipeline syntax, right? So this is our pipeline syntax that we are going to use. So copy and go to the pipeline and here let's enter your script. So my script will be here. So in my Jenkins file. So let's understand the pipeline first. Okay. So here you can see this is the pipeline syntax, right? So first of all, pipeline, then agent, any, then tools, Node.js, then stage, then code from GitHub, then checkout, right? Branches name, extension, then credentials, right? In credentials, this is our GitHub credentials, right? That means this is our variables, right? So here as you can see, our credential ID is GitHub credentials, right? So, right. Then URL, this is our project URL, right? GitHub. So here we need to copy our project URL and paste here, right? So this is our project URL. After that, then next is stage node.js build, right? Then here we are going to install npm. After that, stage build node.js docker image, right? So after that, step script, then docker build -t DevOps hint node app, right? You can see node app, our image name, right? That's our image name and this is our repository name, right? Then here we are going to deploy our docker image to docker hub, right? So that's why here with credentials and our credential ID is DevOps hint docker, right? So here we need to change with DevOps hint because our credential ID is DevOps hint that we have just created, right? Okay. Then you can see docker login -u, then DevOps in Docker, and then Docker push GitHub. Then this is our image name. And after that, in last stage, you can see deploying Node app to. Here we need to change this. Deploying Node app to. So here we are going to change this. Deploying Node app Helm Chart on EKS, right? Okay, after that, this is our name. This is sample, right? AWS update kube config name sample. Sample, why? Because this is my AWS cluster name, EKS name, right? This is my cluster name, right? Sample. And the region is AP South 1. Then after that, here we are going to print this kubectl get NS. And after that, here we are going to install our help install node app. And then node app, this is my node sorry, this is my Helm chart name, right? You can see here my Helm chart name is node app, right? That's why here Helm install node app dot slash node app. This is my Helm chart name, right? Okay, so let's update this here. So my here, so my this credential is, this is my Docker Hub credential name is Docker DevOps, right? That we have just created. So in variable also DevOps, right? Then after that, here DevOps, here also we need to change DevOps. Okay, right? Then here you can see, okay, let's see. If I go to the dashboard, and if I go to my manage Jenkins and then go to the credentials, then you can see first ID is GitHub credentials, right? So as you can see, my credential name is GitHub credentials, right? If you want, then you can copy from here and paste there, right? GitHub credentials. Okay, then next is here our DevOps, our Docker password, right? Our Docker credential ID is DevOps, right? So that's why let's go to here and change this here, DevOps, and DevOps. Okay, okay. Now next is here we need to enter the URL, right? So this is our project URL from here to here. So let's enter here. Okay, right? Okay. Now let's save the pipeline. Okay, now let's commit changes. Right? Okay. So let's copy this pipeline and let's run on Jenkins. Before run on Jenkins, as you can see here, we are going to build and deploy our Docker image. So that's why we need to install Docker, right? So let's install Docker first. So here this is the Docker command to install. So let's install Docker first. So yes, I want to install. Then we need to give some permissions to install Docker. After installing Docker, so yeah, it's done. Now let's give some permissions, and the second for chmod 666. Okay, now it's done. Now after that, if I go to my pipeline and let's check, you can see after in last stage, you can see we are going to deploying node app helm chart 2 on EKS, right? So here, as you can see in this step, you can see we are going to go to the AWS EKS update kube config -f name our sample, that means our cluster name, right? So we are going to in our AWS, right? So we need to add this AWS credentials, right? We need to configure AWS credential in Jenkins, right? So here we need to add configuration, right? We need to configure our AWS. So that's why let's go to the Jenkins using sudo-su. So we need to configure our Jenkins with AWS. And here we need to configure our AWS, right? In Jenkins, you can see we are in now Jenkins. Okay, so let's run the command. So first of all, let's clear the screen. AWS configure. And here let's enter the access key ID. then secret access key ID, and then region is AP South 1. Okay, now it's done. We have successfully configured. Okay. Now let's copy the pipeline and go to the Jenkins, and here let's enter your pipeline. Okay, so let's check for once. You can see here I have added my GitHub project URL, right? And then after that pipeline. So my pipeline, first of all, you can see we are going to clone our GitHub repository, and here I'm going to add this GitHub credentials, right? So my ID is GitHub credentials, and this is my URL of GitHub, right? Then after that, here we are going to build. So that's why we are going to install npm. Then we are going to build our Docker image, right? And our image is here. Then we are going to deploy our Docker image to dockerhub, right? And after that, in last stage, you can see we are going to deploying node app helm chart on EKS, right? So as you can see, okay, so this is my pipeline. So I'm going to apply, and now go to the helm chart here and click on build now. Let's click on build now. So as you can see, first of all, declarative, then we are going to clone our code, then we are going to Node.js build, after that build Node.js Docker image, then deploying Docker image to Docker Hub, and then in last deploying Node app Helm chart on EKS. So our job is succeed. Now let's go to the console output and let's check. So as you can see in console output, you can see it succeed, right? Success, you can see. So first of all, here we are going to clone our repository, right? Then after that, we are going to build our Docker image. After then, we are going to deploy this Docker image to Docker Hub, and then in last, we are going to deploy this Docker this image into our Node app, right? Sorry. Here we are going to deploy this Node app Helm chart on EKS using this Jenkins pipeline. You can see in last step, right? So here is the command. So it's done. So we have successfully deployed. So in this session, we have learned how to deploy Node app Helm chart on EKS using Jenkins pipeline. So thank you for watching.